Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me this evening for our very special lesson on the topic of embracing cringe. My name is Mr. Aegis, and I will be your teacher for the session. I am a health teacher in the real world. I stream indie games, classic games, retro stuff, and I give, ouch, health and wellness lessons on the weekends, like this one, on all kinds of topics: physical and mental health and well-being, self-talk, self-care, cannabis, vaping, supplementation, summer health, social media wellness. But today we're going to be talking about cringe, following up on the heels of our self-talk lesson. We're going to talk about how you should not kill the part of you that is cringe. You should kill the part of you that cringes. Yes, because I am cringe, but I am free. So let's talk about it. First off, of course, what is cringe? That's a pretty big question. Something that we'll need to answer before we can, talk about why it's bad or how to avoid it. What is cringe? What is your definition of cringe? Ralph says vicarious embarrassment. Novi, you know some VTubers who built their entire career on cringe. I mean, it's what I'm doing right now. A cartoon badger health teacher. It's working though. Vicarious embarrassment. It just being weird, awkward, it just doing stupid things or doing embarrassing stuff, seeming childish or being childish. Certain element of shame, Rousey notes. A form of embarrassment, Nova says. Looking at your earlier actions and being like, wow, I was dumb. Why did I do that, Rousey? Yeah, secondhand embarrassment. Major social faux pas, Egbert says. Duco says people viewing things as weird or unsettling, uncomfortable, discomforting. It is a very broad topic, anomalies. I think it's a big part of why it works so well as an accusation people lob at others. It is a very automatic feeling and a very automatic accusation that gets labeled. It's something that someone else did that is so embarrassing that it's embarrassing to you as the observer. Not so much that, wow, you should be embarrassed, but I'm embarrassed for you. It makes me feel embarrassed just seeing or hearing about what you did or said. More internally, when we feel like we're cringe, it's something about a belief that something we do or enjoy would make other people feel embarrassed if they knew about it. Not just that we would be embarrassed if someone knew about our secret Hatsune Miku shrine, but that other people would be embarrassed for us if they found out. So strong it would cause secondhand embarrassment to someone else. That secondhand part, I think, is why it's become so effective, as I said, as an insult, as a accusation. It is secondhand. It feels distant, separate. It allows the accuser to be above it. Yeah, Ralsei. Wow, I might be a loser, but at least I'm not writing poems for internet girls who have no interest in dating me. That feels very specific. It does. I think that's a very important point there, Ralsei, though, about it being an accusation that makes you feel better about yourself. It makes you feel better by comparison. I'm reminded of a song. I should have put this reference up here, but I didn't think about it until just now, by We Came as Romans, called Cast the First Stone. I cast the first stone like I am the last one to blame. Just to take their accusing eyes off myself. Yeah, It is about an instinct to maintain social cohesion. There are reasons that we do it, and it's not necessarily bad. There are things people do that should provoke some embarrassment. We'll talk about that, but yeah, let he who is without cringe cast the first stone. That will be a very important point that we'll get into a little bit later. There's an important distinction to be made between cringe and embarrassment. Cringe and embarrassment are not quite the same thing. These two things broadly overlap, but there are important distinctions. Embarrassment is typically temporary. Embarrassment is something that is typically temporary. It's a brief discomfort. Typically something that's just a little embarrassing. People might be sympathetic for you. It might be mildly amusing. It's not so much of a personal judgment. I think it's the key distinction. When someone is embarrassed in some way, you might actually feel sympathy for them, or empathy even, rather than judging them for it. I think of simple examples like somebody trips and falls. They rip a hole in their pants. That sucks. It's embarrassing. But it could happen to anybody. It's unintentional. It's a mistake. It's not something about their personality. You didn't choose to trip and fall and tear your pants. Might have a laugh about it. That's not cringe. Oh, Ralsei, I've got some stories we could tell. Yeah. Don't throw stones if your house is made of glass, Henry. No flinging of feces. Cringe is more personal. It is soul deep, Rao. Yes. Cringe is more of a long-term issue. It's a behavior or about someone's personality, about their identity. When we call someone cringe, we're saying the person is cringe. Something someone does might be embarrassing. Talking with their mouth full and, a meatball falls out of your mouth. That's embarrassing. Not really what people think of when they call someone cringe, though. An example here. Let's say you get caught on camera crying at your favorite wrestling show because your favorite just won the championship. I don't think that's cringe, but a lot of people might call that person cringe. And in fact, they did. This person got called a lot of things on the internet, as you might imagine. They got caught up in the moment. Something about their favorite wrestler hit them in the feels. And people called it cringe. But it was over something that is a very classic example of what we're going to talk about in terms of being yourself, being true to yourself and your feelings. Let's talk about a couple things that are actual cringe, some real cringe, things that are actually cringeworthy. And yes, as a brief aside, a lolcow is someone that people milk for more drama, for more cringe content. Talk about some things that are actual cringe. Normalize men showing genuine emotion. Be true to yourself. Yes, some things that are real cringe, though. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I'm single, baby girl, but how about you though? Trying to make you my number one, trying to make you my numero uno.
That was the Kendall Jenner Pepsi ad. Orbino Bambino, this was super cringe. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. There was huge backlash about that Pepsi ad. It was during a time of great civil unrest a few years ago. People were genuinely angry, for good reason. Kendall Jenner, I'll just solve all the world's problems by handing people a Pepsi. It was absolutely tone deaf. People recoiled at it. That I feel is some genuine cringe. Whereas, an element of lack of self-awareness, that is really a crucial element of what real cringe is. This is also cringe. This is also deep cringe. Speaking of lack of self-awareness. Someone who hypes themselves up, gasses themselves up in a way that is completely oblivious to social cues. If you have to call yourself the meme lord, you're not the meme lord. If you take pictures of yourself with fancy guns by your bedside table and all of your Diet Cokes and a replica George Washington black powder pistol and all the, I don't know if you can see them, the water rings showing there's probably been hundreds, if not thousands, of Diet Cokes consumed on this bed table. There's an incredible lack of awareness. Incredible lack of awareness in not realizing people aren't going to think that's cool, man. That doesn't make you look cool. You knew exactly what the picture was, Cyrus. Yep. Yes, Henry Bear. Kendall Jenner, a person who has never done a day of work in their lives, was in a video walking through a big protest during a time of civil unrest and gave the police officer a Pepsi, and everyone smiled and danced, and it was unreal. It was cringe, and everyone sort of recognized it as such. How about this?
Imagine there is no heaven. It's easy if you try.
No hell below us.
Above us on the sky.
Imagine all the people
living for today. Yeah.
Imagine there is no countries. Yeah.
It isn't hard to do.
Yeah. The thing that Anomalisa Keys was just referencing. During the first few months of the pandemic, celebrities from their mansions or their private communities sending out that video of themselves singing along to John Lennon's Imagine. That's what'll get us out of this slump. A bunch of millionaires poorly singing a song that they do not understand. It was deep cringe, and everyone understood how completely out of touch it was. Yes, singing a song about a propertyless utopia to people who were really struggling, as if they were sharing that struggle, as if that whole saying, we're all in the same boat. No, we're in a little dinghy. You're in a yacht. Get out of here. That I felt was some real cringe. But here's one that's also some deep cringe. This is a text from a nice guy. Oh, thank you for the hearts. Here's a text from a nice guy. Hey, beautiful. I noticed your pictures and you're gorgeous. May I perhaps ask you for sexual favors? Hello? No response. You're a blank, you know that? I hate blanks like you. You always go after guys who will treat you like garbage and not nice guys like me. Your blank is probably overused anyways. Even blank. F you and your ugly ass blank. Would we say that that's cringe? Would we reasonably say that that is actually cringe? Yeah. Yeah, I think we can agree that that's actual cringe. That there's some real cringe out there. Mega cringe, absolutely. What 5 minutes on red does to somebody. Exactly. People really feel entitled to people's attention. Absolutely oblivious. Tips, Fedora, m'lady. May I perhaps request your boobers, madame? Your booba look heavy, ma'am.
Questions?
I have several questions. Actually, Yeah. Being oblivious to social boundaries, to other people's wishes, other people's boundaries, maidenless behavior. Yeah. Never touched grace. Cringe is real. There is cringe. It's not always what people think. How about Pokemon Go to the polls? Was that cringe? It was cringe. I'm Pokemon going to die. This made Dagoth Ur and the whole 6th house go back to sleep. Is this how you honor the 6th house and the tribe unmourned? Out of step, out of touch with the young people, trying to pretend like you are cool and hip and with it. How about a cold steel gladius? Ralsei and Rao might remember the reference I'm about to make. But yeah, how about people who think that their Maul swords are cool? It looks cool, Egbert, yeah. Cold Steel is generally pretty low quality. But the reference I'm making is there was a fanfiction author in a particular fandom who was kind of well known and who wrote a very long fanfiction, but who also wrote about, during some civil unrest, that he was going to go protect his favorite bar from the ruffians carrying his Cold Steel Gladius. The result, of course, was that he got his ass beat and was on the news, literally crumpled up like that Yamcha meme. Yeah, he got beat down. There's no laws against the Pokemon, Batman. I get it, Henry. Yep. Yeah, it was an unenjoyable experience for everyone involved. But I would say that's cringe. He literally did get Yamcha'd, even though he had a sword. But he was the kind of person who would carry around this kind of sword in public to defend his bar. Not even his bar, just a bar that he liked to go to. But the point, of course, is that there are some things that are genuinely cringy out in the world. We can't talk about cringe culture in society today without talking about the cringe comedy, though. The cringe comedy has made cringe more mainstream. Shows like The Office, Curb Your Enthusiasm, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Nathan For You, Arrested Development, and yes, even The Amazing World of Gumball is considered by some to be cringe comedy because of the lack of self-awareness or egos of some of the characters involved. Cringe comedies became king. I mean, there was always Seinfeld and stuff like that, but it's definitely on top of the world right now. Nathan For You especially. Whether it's the characters putting others in awkward, uncomfortable situations, or the characters themselves being weird and awkward and uncomfortable. But it's something people seem to enjoy watching. Vicarious embarrassment, Schadenfreude, if you will. I'm not a big fan of cringe comedy. I can't really handle it. I can do It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because it's so over the top. But mostly that's it for me. Yeah, Loris, The Office can be super hard to watch. You have to get used to it. But I mean, the things that they do in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia are absolutely outrageous and offensive. But then it makes you realize there are actually people like that out in the world who actually do those things. I usually have to watch stuff that's a little bit easier on the stomach, I guess. I have a sensitive tummy for TV. Oh, you haven't heard of Nathan For You? Reagan? Yeah, it's something. But I like comfortable shows. The world is cringy enough as it is. I don't like to watch a lot of horror movies either, though. That's just me personally. These are super popular. Big Mouth as cringe comedy? Yeah, that probably fits. Some people would consider Gumball to be cringe because of the obliviousness of Gumball and Darwin's behaviors. The socially inappropriate things that they do. Sort of inflated ego. But that means there's a difference between cringe and cringe. We gave some examples of things that are, actually cringeworthy. Let's talk about some things that get called cringe, but probably shouldn't be considered cringe. It's been brought up, of course. You know it. You love it. I bet you can even name this legendary, iconic character. Maybe you can even read the word on their jeans, which is misspelled, but you probably know. You probably know. Nothing personal, kid. Cold Steel the Hedgehog. That's right, Cyrus. Cold Steel the Hedgehog. A young person's Sonic OC. Is it really cringe? Is it actually cringe? Should we feel secondhand embarrassment that someone made this for whatever reason they did? How about archive of our own? About fanfiction.net. Yeah, probably some 14-year-old. We all did stupid things at 14. You think it's kind of epic, Anomaly Skis? Someone's genuine expression of what they were feeling and thinking at the time? Rouse says that AO3's biggest sin is just their user interface. Nova and Pulse notes that it's an exploration of identities at a time in our lives when we barely know who we are. And we really call things that preteens and young adults do that cringeworthy? How about this person's amateur drawing of Obama? It wasn't a child. This was an adult. There's someone who doesn't draw maybe as well as people would have thought someone would draw before sharing their work everywhere. Is it cringe? Well, the lion notes that it's better than they could do. You kind of like it, Loresno? Yeah, some people are noting it's actually not that bad, but it got mocked as cringe. A decent attempt. It's not realistic. It doesn't have like a stylized aesthetic. Maybe it, from some objective measures of how art is made, is not good. But is it cringe? Be very, very subjective. How about this person's extremely epic mecha of some Gundam that they've set up with an entire structure around it that looks like it's being worked on, repaired. Epic and cool, based, awesome, yes. Would someone who has a wall full of these be called cringe by some people? Would this person be called cringe by others for being this dedicated? Bert, you just got into Mobile Suit Gundam, so not unbiased. Yeah, yeah. People will always judge hobbies, judged by cowards. People who are throwing the first stone to take the attention off of what they might be doing that they feel embarrassed about. Cyrus, you note that someone with a wall full of them would be called cringe, probably by people who have a wall full of Funko Pops. I was just about to mention, too, that people who play games a lot, who are super into, I don't know, Smash Brothers. Gamers will often be called cringe by, let's just say boomers. Oh, you spend hours a day playing that game. By people who spend the same amount of hours a day parked in front of the couch watching cable news. How about a bad cosplayer? How about a bad cosplay? If someone could say it was objectively bad. Dragon, you feel you never had a cringe phase? I had a phase where I wore a Kangol hat. I guess that was pretty cringe. I mean, people who know me better know that I've had cringier phases, but yeah. This guy doesn't look a whole lot like Akuma, but an attempt was made. How about Ren Fair? How about people who go to Renaissance fairs and dress up? I've only gone to the Ren Fair a couple times, but every time I've had a good time. Every time I've had a good time. What about people who are terrible at dancing but still dance anyway? This is a very famous meme. This picture has probably been around the internet a billion times. Guy looks like he's having a blast, though. Anomaly Skis, you used to dress up goth. That's something people would call cringe, yeah. Scene kids would be called cringe. Yeah, the guy's busting it down, Lel the Lion. He's having the time of his life. Doesn't seem to care that anyone else might be watching. How about a MySpace phase? Some of you might be too old for this, or too young for this. Is this cringe? This person's MySpace aesthetic cringe? Is posting your bad poetry on your live journal cringe? If you had your MySpace covered in Ruby Gloom and Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, and you had My Chemical Romance playing, but I mean, how cringe could MySpace be if, as Cyrus notes, Piccolo used to use it? Empress raises the perhaps eternal question, is Tumblr cringe? Many people would say yes. Anomalisa Keys, yeah, that's the kind of username people used to have. I will admit, I had one that was lowercase x, uppercase x, the uppercase x, silencer, uppercase x, lowercase x. Because I was obsessed with Troa from Gundam Wing, and that was their nickname. But that's the kind of username you had to have, because everything else was taken. Yeah, I was Le Epic Badger. The Epic Gentle Sir. I made you a cookie, but I eated it. Yeah, Spork of Doom. Is Spork of Doom stuff cringe? We definitely would say so, yes. Some of you don't know what that reference is, but you'll get there. You had an emo avatar in our world and you named them King David 250. People would call that cringe, Empress, yeah. You got a System of Down song title? Anomalisa Keys? Yeah. That tracks. But since we're talking about eras past, internet eras past, it's time to talk about a very important shift that's happened. And it's happened a couple times. Just some important context, some background for why we are where we are today. And where we are today, as you might know, is that cringe is a very powerful accusation, and it is now a very powerful force in our lives. People are afraid to be called cringe, to be considered cringe. Cringe seems to prevent people from doing things. Cringe has become a force in and of itself. But this wasn't always the case. Those MySpace era people were the norm. So what changed and why? The two topics, the two concepts, the two words that we need to keep in mind are cynicism and irony. Cynicism is a huge problem right now. A powerful wave of cynicism has washed over all of our society in the West. Genuine, sincere expressions are considered cringe. It's only okay to like things ironically. You need to remain aloof. You need to remain distant. People are cynical, deeply so. Why did we get there? In the 1980s, there was similar cynicism and irony. And it was related in large part to the social situation of the time. There were economic struggles. There were a great deal of global tensions, a high degree of consumerism, reflected in the media, the music, the movies, the TV shows. And the values of the time were counterculture, cynicism, in the punk music, in the alternative scenes, in dystopian fiction. Irony was a strong coping mechanism. It did indeed become hip to be square, as Ralsei notes. People distanced themselves from earnestness because being seen as earnest would make someone seem naive. How can you be so bright and chipper and hopeful? Don't you see how the world is? The 90s, though, brought something that people would later refer to as the new sincerity. There was a sense of youthful optimism, hopefulness. The aesthetic, particularly. Even though there were a wide range of different aesthetics that the 90s can say are attributed to them. Some of these are my favorites. They're like mall deco, grunge corporatism, Fraser Bane. If Kirby is still here, they'll appreciate that one. Cyber corporate. But there was an economic upturn. New technology. The internet was bringing people together. Greater interconnectedness. There was a sincere new hopefulness. Even in some of the art that would be seen as angsty and grungy, like Nirvana. Even that, it was genuine. There was raw, sincere angst. Earnest. It was the end of history. It was the rise of the forum. A way for people to get connected. To express themselves anonymously. In part, there was a a factor of this that was related to the youth movement. Media did seem to be more catered towards youth, and that aesthetic seemed to bleed into the rest of society. And as the century turned over into the 2000s, the opinion polls were pretty sharp. This new tech had become integrated into people's lives. People had new avenues for expression, new ways to channel their feelings, to be heard. And even though there were economic difficulties and still tensions, the hopefulness, the polls showed the percentage of people who felt optimistic about self and family were up to 80%. 70% felt hopeful about their country. As far as hope for the future, huge majorities of people thought that very soon that there would be a cure for cancer, there would be a cure for AIDS, there would be an improvement in the environment. 75% of people thought that soon we would land on Mars. There was a sincere, vulnerable hopefulness and expression at that period. Always bet on hope. Well, that hope, over time, fortunately, became the 2010s. And a trend started towards irony. Sarcasm became a personality, the way of coping and insulating from a rising set of economic problems, increasing global tensions that people thought may have been going away. Social media especially, which initially had been very sincere, very earnest space that people were exploring, became performative. It was a way for you to get attention, not for who you genuinely were, but for its own sake. Internet irony sprouted and grew like a weed, became a force. Meme culture started to become about mockery. Even media that ostensibly did feature earnest characters and situations began to do so through a kind of winking self-awareness, meta-irony, like The Office. There was a great deal of optimism at the end of the century, that by the end of the first decade in that century, it trended towards irony and sarcasm as a coping means, as a way to insulate ourselves from, again, being seen as vulnerable, naive, in times that were increasingly challenging. You remember this video? You remember the video that this picture comes from? This rainbow? Maybe you do. Maybe you can hear it. Maybe this is one of those images you can hear. Empress got it. Double rainbow. Double rainbow all the way across the sky. Right? This guy just taking a video of himself hiking. Saw this beautiful double rainbow, and maybe it wasn't the most sensational thing in the world, but commenting on it to himself with a sense of wonder. What does it mean? And when it hit the internet, it was met with widespread mockery. This person's maybe over the top, but seemingly sincere expression of wonderment, enjoyment, mocked, derided. But why? Why would people care enough to even mock that? In addition to the generational shift, there's also, of course, a cultural shift. Around that time, okay, an economic crisis, ongoing. 2008 financial crisis and its aftermath left a lingering impact. Lingering financial problems reshaping, as Cyrus noted, young people's especially outlook towards the world, towards skepticism, and to self-protection. There's a great deal of understandable anger, bitterness, political, social instability, cynicism, housing and debt crisis, disillusionment, bitterness, climate anxiety, gridlock, then of course the pandemic. We don't need to dive deeply into that. We can talk about it in its own lesson, perhaps, the effect it's had on us, but it certainly didn't help. Tense feelings of isolation, loneliness, authenticity, and openness became risky, even exhausting. The virtual environments people relied on magnified people's vulnerabilities and their judgments. It also led to a prolonged reliance on digital interactions, but it made sincere expressions feel too exposed. And we always have to talk about enshittification and its effect. Media enshittification, especially, a trend towards the outrage economy in all social media, transitioning from communities to content. Things that used to connect people turned into competitions for attention. Genuine connection often gives way to outrage, argument, sensationalism, negativity, all to drive engagement. Prioritizing discontent, cynicism. Transition from the potential hope of widespread, interconnected community spaces on the internet into algorithm-driven engagement machines. So, the current generations, from millennials on down, have grown a pretty thick skin of irony and cynicism. Not all, but many. I think we all have felt that. So the cycle continues. As some of you noted, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. We're in that particular period. We're in that period of cynicism, irony, protecting our feelings, being cut off, susceptible to being considered cringe, wanting to throw the stones at others so that people aren't paying attention to us. Maybe if we continue to label things that are just slightly weirder than us as cringe, we'll be considered safe. But there's a reason that you should always protect the cringeworthy. Because the wolves will not stop. You will be lunch next. When they're done eating the person that is weirder than you, they will turn on you. If you think you're safe because you have, I don't know, an interest in some band like One Direction or something, and you're obsessed with it, and you think, well, if I lob cringe accusations at people who are into Sonic fandom OCs, well, those are the really weird people. I'm only kind of weird. Nope, you're weird too. You will not be spared. Why it's, in fact, better to push the envelope. I would rather have things in the world that make me feel uncomfortable or feel like they're cringe That's actually what's insulating. That's actually what protects you. If there are people out there who are weirder than you, helping the orphan crushing machine crush them doesn't help you. It just leaves fewer victims available for the orphan crushing machine. If it's safe to be someone who's weirder than you, then it's safe to be you. I don't want to get too deep into the I don't want to get too deep into some of the more specifics because I don't want to call anyone out. But let's say someone has a particular fetish and you think that's a weird thing. It isn't something that hurts someone else. It isn't something that's patently harmful. But if you consider it cringe, if you hate on it, if you take your turn casting stones, the things you're into are less safe. The things you're into, they're not going to be more accepted by society. You are actually safer. Your interests, your opinions, the stuff you're into is actually safer and better off if people who are weirder than you are safe to be themselves. The farther out that boundary goes, the safer you are. But irony has become a coping mechanism. We have what I would call a performative detachment. Act detached and above it all, because then we can't be lumped in with those people. We're not like them. If we don't have any specific beliefs or strong interests or opinions, nobody can lob accusations at us. And all those algorithms, of course, that we talked about, they definitely do reward being cynical, edgy. Eventually that leads to isolation, though, because there's nowhere else to go. You don't have any community. You don't have people who have similar interests, similar strong connections, because you wouldn't allow yourself to have any. You had to be detached. Everyone had to be detached. Everyone had to be completely individual. Where does that lead us? Well, eventually that gets tiring too. Eventually you get tired of being cynical. Eventually you get tired of being isolated, of being closed off. Irony isn't a personality. Sarcasm isn't a personality. Does that leave us open for new possibility? A new sincerity? Maybe so. Because all of that judgment and embarrassment, well, it hurts us. It has an effect on us. Shame, embarrassment, actually shares some of the same processing areas in the brain as actual pain. We call it social pain. Things that are related to interpersonal rejection, feelings of loss, and bullying, activates some of the same components as our physical pain symptoms. Having those areas constantly activated, feeling constantly in danger of being judged, constantly embarrassed of who we are, They do the same things to our brains that chronic pain does. Again, though, we look at the difference between embarrassment and shame, cringe. Things that are just embarrassing may hurt our image, but they're morally neutral. Mistake. Shame, though, is when it's something that hurts our image in front of others, but that we think is morally wrong. Things that we've perhaps been told by society are wrong, even if they don't actually hurt anyone else. That leads, in the end, to guilt. That is us judging ourselves, not based on the judgment of others, but judging ourselves. Not just that the thing I did was bad, but that I'm bad. I'm a bad person for whatever it was that embarrassed me, shamed me, made me feel guilty. So cringe can change us, and not in a good way. Cringe may keep us from doing things that are genuinely offensive and embarrassing, or may lead us to some kind of social harm. But for the most part, especially the kind of cringe that we're seeing be used as a accusation, restricts our personal expression, reduces the choices we feel are available to us that are socially allowable, makes us feel more anxiety over being judged, and it can make it harder for us to find genuine connections. In the end, it self-replicates, because we become part of that cringe machine, and we turn around and label others as cringe and continue to throw the accusation around. What kind of things do you think this fear prevents people from doing? What does cringe constrict? Yes, Dragon, exactly. That is why really embarrassing stories that we see or read, or scenes in movies and TV that we watch, may actually physically make us feel something like pain. Creativity and expression. Rao says dancing. Yes. All of the above. Ineffable, invisible thoughts in other people's heads are actually acting as guide rails, railroading us, acting as bounds for what we feel we're allowed to do. Maybe people don't post their writing because they're afraid it will be seen as amateurish. Might not record their music. They might not post a poem. They might not go dancing. They might not get into a fandom. They might not stream. It might be cringy for someone of my gender or my age or my background to be into something like that. Not something that I should do because I'm not any good at it. What about you? Has that kind of fear of embarrassment prevented you from doing things? There been anything that you've held back from doing because, well, that would be embarrassing. I'm not going to go to that club. I'm not going to go to that event. I'm not going to wear that piece of clothing. I might want to because I'm worried about how it'll look on me. I think maybe we've all had at least one or two of those things. At it a bit, but you're getting better. Anomaly Sakis. You're putting in the work. We dancing for you, Rao. You danced at the bar in your weeb cat hoodie. Very good, very good. So how can we deal? How can we continue to improve? How can we continue to deal with and resist the wave of cynicism, irony, and sarcasm? Fears of being accused of being cringe, of being seen as embarrassing or cringe. What can we do to help ourselves deal with that problem? First, we can recognize, number one, the devil isn't there. The devil's advocate, or the devil on our shoulder, the devil isn't there. Find yourself that. The devil isn't there. And what I mean by that, not referring to a physical devil, but I'm talking about the spotlight effect. Number one, remember, is that most people don't actually care. Most people aren't actually paying attention. They aren't actually judging you. They aren't actually even looking at you. Even if they are, and even if they are judging you, they probably won't remember. The spotlight effect refers to the fact that we always overestimate if and how much people are judging us. We think that we're always standing out in the crowd. And in reality, we're just a part of the crowd. Hold on to that sentiment, Robbie. Very important concept. This particular study had people wear embarrassing t-shirts. This wasn't the actual t-shirt, but it was a Barry Manilow shirt. In this study, people wore these embarrassing shirts, and the subjects thought that 50% of the people around them noticed them wearing that shirt. Less than half of them actually did. Less than half of that actually did even notice. People thought that about half of the crowd noticed them wearing this embarrassing shirt, but only half of that half actually did. People doubled their perception. They thought twice as many people noticed the embarrassing thing they were wearing. We drastically overestimate how many people notice something embarrassing that we do or say. The study also had people wear neutral t-shirts. This isn't the t-shirt, but it was a Bob Marley shirt for some. People still overestimated how many people noticed them. People thought that 45% of those they encountered remembered them wearing that shirt. Less than 10% did. We even overestimate how much people are paying attention to us when we're not embarrassing. Even when we're just in a neutral situation, we still overestimate how much people are paying attention to us. The study also had people go into discussion groups and then estimate things like how much people were paying attention to my points. Did people think I was dominating the conversation? Did they think I was misspeaking? In all of those areas as well, people overestimated how much they were noticed, for good or for worse. For good or worse. Yeah, I misspoke. It's embarrassing. People still overestimated, for better or worse, how much others were noticing them. People did, indeed, Anomalisa Keys, get stuck in protagonist syndrome. The devil isn't actually there. You're not actually being judged that much. Even if people are judging you, you're only being seen by a tiny, tiny fraction of a sliver of the world. So the devil isn't there. So the devil isn't there. Devil isn't there. People may think they're being judged, that the person around them who notices not only notices, but is also thinking about them, and is thinking about them in a negative way. Look at this freak. Look at that person's dumb t-shirt. Look at that chili stain on their shirt. Look at them wearing their Sonic OC on their shirt. Look at this person's avatar on their social media account. It's their Stan account for their favorite K-pop group. Look at this freak. But guess what? Most of the time, they're not thinking about you. Oh, hello, Tremor. Most of the time, they're not thinking about you. You know what? You know why? Because they're thinking about what's for dinner. Does Alex think I'm ugly? Oh, my mom's sick again. Oh, great, there's another war. Huh. My bus is late. Again. Oh, wow, Silksong's coming out soon. Oh, got my rent is due. They've got a jingle stuck in their head. I can't believe it's not butter. Got some vocal tick happening. They're thinking about how they need to pee. They're wondering if Hangman Page will beat Jon Moxley. Maybe if they even do catch a glimpse of whatever you're doing or saying, they'll go, oh, that was weird, whatever. And go back to the fact that their bus is late and they need to piss. And they need to make dinner. People have other stuff going on. They're not paying attention to you. You know what they're more often thinking about, though, than all of this? Anyone have a guess as to what the bigger thing they might be concerning themselves with, rather than thinking about you? They're thinking about how everyone's looking at them. They're thinking about how they're the center of attention, how everyone is judging them. They're thinking the same thing you're thinking, as Dragon says. They're worried about the same thing you are. Being judged. Everyone looking at them. They're the protagonist to them. But even if they are taking a break from worrying about being judged themselves to judge you, Even if that devil is there, why listen to the devil? Is that person who might judge you for whatever it is that you're doing, or singing, even though you aren't very good at singing, or dancing, even though you aren't very good at dancing, or posting your poetry, even though they might think it's cringy or too deep for me or edgy or emo? Is that a person whose opinion matters to you? Is that a person whose opinion matters to you? It's probably not. Is it a person that you respect? Is it a person who respects you? Is it a person who would judge you no matter what? Is it a person who would think poorly of you whether they saw your poetry regardless? Who would think that you're weird and cringe no matter what? Even if all of the above is perhaps possible, does their opinion matter to anyone else? Or are they a POS? Or are they just a piece of garbage that no one listens to anyway? Are they actually cringe? Are they one of those actual examples of cringe behavior? Are they an asshole? A judgmental jerk? Some kind of bigot or social pariah that no one is going to listen to anyway? So most of the time, people aren't actually judging you. Even if they are, they might not be someone whose opinion you care about. They might not be someone whose opinion matters to anyone. Or it might be that the person or people who are judging you, those opinions won't have any impact on you. They won't affect you personally or socially or impair your career or hinder your social connections or your potential of getting a girlfriend or get a promotion or advance in society in some way. Will that person's opinion, will the thing you've done that might feel embarrassing or cringy actually harm you in any way? Most cases, no. So most of the time, people aren't judging you. In the few cases that they are, they might be someone whose opinion doesn't matter to you, doesn't matter to anyone else, isn't about anything that would restrict you in any way. Sometimes it's only you. Sometimes that judgment is only coming from you. And that's why we had to keep in mind our lesson from last time, self-talk. Because this is largely coming from yourself. Remember that we are both the receiver and the observer of our self-talk. Sometimes we're both the receiver and observer of our sense of embarrassment. Because you're not your thoughts. Remember that in the end, we came to the conclusion about our self-talk that, yes, it is us, but it's also not us. Our internal self-judgment isn't just us. It's us through the filter of our background and our experiences, the things that we've been told by parents and authority figures and adults in our lives is right or wrong, is normal or embarrassing. Sometimes we're projecting. We're projecting what we think other people will judge us about. Remember what M stood for in our Capcom acronym for the types of negative self-talk we get stuck in? Remember, there was comparison and catastrophizing. There was polarizing, black and white thinking. That M stood for mind reading. We assume we know what people are thinking about us. Self-talk is mind reading. We're assuming that people have these negative thoughts about what we're doing. Think that it's cringe, embarrassing. But while some people might actually be watching us and judging us, even if most people aren't, there will be some of them that are watching and judging us because they like what they see. They like the thing you're doing. Most people aren't paying attention to you. Most people aren't judging you. Some of them that are watching you or judging you are not people whose opinion you should care about. But some of the people who are watching you, judging you, are judging you because they've judged what you're doing or saying to be cool, to be good, to be something they wished they were doing. Something that they wished they were brave enough to do openly, without fear, without embarrassment. They wish they were as brave as you. Of the people who do notice, some will like what they see. Some of them will wish that they were doing the same thing you were. I wish I had enough confidence to sing in public like they do. I wish I had the confidence to wear my favorite character's costume to the movie premiere. Sure, people would call it cringe. You're a grown adult dressing up to go see a movie. Well, who cares? You know what one of the biggest problems is as a teacher when it comes to classroom engagement? One of the most challenging things. Something we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to deal with in classes regarding group development and classroom behavior management. Besides cell phones, Raul. Besides cell phones. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. When teachers take classes themselves about group management, group development, group dynamics, one of the biggest things focused on is, why don't people raise their hands when they have a question? When they need help, when they want help, why don't they ask for it? Why don't they ask for help? They need the help. They know they need the help. They don't understand what you've just said. They know they don't understand what you just said. They still don't raise their hand. They still don't ask for help. They're embarrassed about being seen as not knowing what you're talking about. They're embarrassed to be seen as needing help, as wanting help. They're too cool for school. It's embarrassing. How many times has it happened, though, that you've been in a class and someone raises their hand and asks a question? You go, oh, good. Glad somebody asked. Because you had the same problem. You had the same question. You know, if you have an ant in your house, you can pretty safely say there's more ants in your house. If someone raises their hand in my classroom and asks a question, it's a guarantee that they were not the only person who had that question. If one person has the question, most of the time, multiple people had the same issue. And And often, when one person raises their hand and asks a question, it opens the floodgates. Start getting follow-up questions. Someone has broken the dam. Someone has opened the gate. They've opened the door that says it's okay to ask a question. It's okay not to know, especially if that person is someone who is seen in high regard by the class. One of the cool students asking a question. That lets everyone else know it's okay to be unsure. It's okay to ask questions. Oh, the cool kid. Oh, Loresno asked the question. Oh, they usually get it right away. If they're not sure, then I guess it must be okay not to get this. It must be hard. Teachers will look for the cool student and try to develop the kind of relationship with them that they can ask them to be outspoken, to be a leader in the class. They raise your hand and ask questions. That lets their peers know that it's okay. This is just how it works in the real world, outside of the classroom. When you behave and do the things that you want to do without fear of cringe or embarrassment, judgment, shame, it's a bright signal. It's a lighthouse signaling everyone around you it's okay. It's okay to do this. It's okay to be this. What month is it, class? What is this month? It's June. The Group of Lions month. June, month of pride, moon of pride. Think about the relevance. When it comes to these kinds of things we're talking about, the being yourself, dancing like people are watching but you still don't care that they're watching, remember that you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Sometimes people will judge you and sometimes people will like what they see. Most importantly, though, you're going to judge yourself later no matter what. Whether you do or don't do the thing, whether it was cringe or not, you're going to judge yourself. You're the one who's going to have to live with that. Mostly, though, you'll judge yourself for what you didn't do. Your regrets will not come from the things you did. From the things you thought about doing and weren't quite brave enough to do. Some of you may recognize this handsome mug, Soren Kierkegaard. One of those old philosophers. His Gen Z bus and haircut would not be out of style today, though. You may recognize him mostly from one of those QRS memes. But he has a great quote that says, "I see it all perfectly. There are two possible situations. One can either do this or that. My honest opinion and my friendly advice is this. Do it or do not do it. You'll regret both." And he also said the most common form of despair is not being who you are. Yes, it's very reminiscent, Loresno, of quotes like that. Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. I can't remember who said this quote, but If you have never eaten while crying, you have never tasted of life. Alfred Lord Tennyson, thank you. Thank you, Loresna. That's a good call. That goes back to the start of the lesson where we talked about it being okay to cry. So how do we deal with it? We've talked about philosophically how to approach it, but enough. How do we stop? How do we stop ourselves? Well, we're going to follow the same strategy we did regarding self-talk. We're going to ICP. That's right, we're going to ICP. We're going to identify, challenge, put into perspective, judgments. We're going to identify, in this case, the prison guard. This prison guard who is always watching over our every move, our every thought, our every belief, our every interest. The cop in our head that tells us, this is cringe, you can't do that. We were identifying the negative self-talk lesson. Now we're going to identify this cop in our head. We're going to catch this critic because it relies on stealth. It relies on us not paying attention, on us just automatically thinking, I'm not going to do that, that's cringe. We're going to label it. We're going to identify it. We're going to say, I'm only thinking that that's embarrassing because reason. I'm only thinking that's embarrassing because I heard someone make fun of someone like that before. And then we'll remember, wait a minute, I don't even like that person. Yeah, I've heard people make fun of people who do the thing that I'm thinking about doing, but I don't even like those people. In fact, I hate those people, and they already hate me, so who cares? Give them a Pepsi. Well, that's a good callback. I'm going to identify these feelings of embarrassment for what they are. They're the cop in our head. They're not actually us. And then we're going to challenge. We're going to challenge the guard. And confront them. Interrogate it. The cop in our head said, this is embarrassing. Yeah, that's cringe to do that. Okay, well, is that true? Do you have any evidence? Objection, says Phoenix Wright. Actually, do you have a source for that claim? Is that feeling of shame or embarrassment actually helping? Does it serve any purpose? Is the thing you're doing actually offensive to other people? Because again, we're not going to dismiss it out of hand. I mean, if we reflect and say, oh, well, yeah, actually, that would actually be embarrassing because I might offend people. Okay, then it was useful. But if there's no purpose for that feeling of embarrassment, there's no evidence that would actually cause us or anyone else any harm, then we can put it into perspective. Is it really a big deal? They're mitigating circumstances. Might someone be proud of us if we did this? If we took this step? If we were open and proud of the things that we were doing and our interests and our passions, we were sincere and earnest, would other people find that inspiring? Would your future self judge you positively because you did it? So that's what we'll do. We will ICP. We will identify these feelings of shame and embarrassment. We will challenge them, and we'll put them into perspective. You don't have to do it all right away, though. You don't have to do everything all the time. You can acclimate. You can take your time. You can do it slowly. Do gradual exposure. You can speak up a little bit more in your friend groups. Speak your mind a little bit more in public. Add a little personality to your dress instead of changing things dramatically right away. When you do feel embarrassment, you can slow down, observe, reflect on that feeling, and feel that it does pass. Do our breathing exercise and think about the fact that, you know what, yeah, I do feel embarrassed, and it's okay. It went away. Practice mindfulness. Again, we do have a full lesson on mindfulness, and we'll go back and do that lesson again soon. We should also adjust our mentality and seek support. Clearly identify the things that you can and can't control. People whose opinions you can and can't influence. Maybe someone whose opinion you do respect might judge you, but only because they don't understand. Maybe they might think that what you're doing is cringe or embarrassing, but maybe they can be brought around. Cultivate acceptance, and most importantly, treasure authenticity. Actually value it. And in your circle, in your group of friends, in your Discord servers, in your friend groups, be authentic and be vulnerable. Be mutual. Explicitly tell others that it's okay. Talk about this topic specifically in your group. Raise this issue. Tell people, let's be more authentic with each other. Let's talk about the things that we feel embarrassed about. God, that's hard, isn't it? Isn't basic communication just so hard? Doesn't it feel so strange to think, oh, I'm not going to bring this up in my Discord group. Why would I talk about, hey, let's be open and honest and vulnerable with each other? Isn't that like a real open friendship? Isn't that what a deep, meaningful, personal connection with someone is? If you recoiled a bit at the thought of bringing up this topic in my friend group, something to reflect on. Be flawed, but take great courage. Normalize being imperfect. Yes, Ralsei, you hit it right on the head before I even got there. Normalize sharing your ideas and creativity, especially if they're imperfect, especially if they are a little bit cringe. Laugh with yourself. See these so-called ugly produce, these ugly fruits that are just as good as any other fruit. You're just going to chop them up and put them in your salsa or whatever anyway. People will actually not buy these, even though they're exactly the same and no different than the peppers that look the way people expect them to look. There's a movement to sell these at a discount to make sure people actually buy them and to make sure they don't go to waste, because these tend to get thrown away. Celebrate your own courage and that of others. When someone in your circle does something that might be embarrassing or takes the step to do something that's something they wanted to do but felt awkward about, Praise that. Celebrate it. Praise and reward acts of sincerity, overcoming embarrassment. So let's, for a moment, imagine a world without cringe. What would a world without cringe look like? What might it feel like? Laugh in the face of adversity. A whole lot of bad dancing would happen. True. What might you do if you didn't have to worry about embarrassment or shame? I know that I've been held back mentally from sharing what I do here with others. Oh, this is just a silly little online streaming thing. For a while, I've wanted to share this with other teachers, other professionals, curriculum development, people into pedagogy, research and development in finding better ways to teach. Why would I be embarrassed about sharing this with them? But I was. I still do feel some embarrassment about it. What will they think? This isn't perfect. It, of course, is a greater challenge for people who may suffer from some perfectionism, maybe a little OCD, maybe a little ADHD, like me. Imagine if you didn't have those feelings. I'm going to play this brief snippet of a song because I don't play more than that or get demonetized. This is one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite artists, The Midnight, who I was totally not embarrassed about going to their show and dancing and singing along. Play this brief snippet.
So you learn how to fight, how to starve, how to survive. When the others blocked your light, you learn to see beyond the stars. The curse of small desires, easily acquired. It's time to set your gasoline heart on fire. Kill your demons, kill them dead. In your mule, in your bed, in your heart, in your head. Don't you look good in bed? Slay your devils, kill them all. Take your throne, paint the walls. And if you make it out alive, hold that bloody head up high. Don't you look good in bed?
Yes, and I will absolutely get you the link to that song. That is The Midnight. The song is Good in Red. I love that song. I love the message, the theme. They do this amazing genre of, feels like late 80s, early 90s, synthwave, dark wave, beautiful, beautiful stuff. A lot of the songs don't have lyrics, especially from the album Endless Summer, which I have a driver jacket of. It's great. But they have this saxophone player. Oh my God, saxophone in these songs, love it. We'll play that in the Discord a little later. But I really love that sentiment. Set your gasoline heart on fire. Kill your demons. Those devils in your head telling you what you be embarrassed about. Your mirror. That person judging you back in the mirror, how you look. In your bed. The things in your heart, the things in your head. Kill them. Take your throne. Paint the walls red with its blood. and hold your bloody head up high. And since I've mentioned Kierkegaard, of course, I want to also give this quote from C.S. Lewis. You've probably heard it, or at least pieces of it, some of you who have been in fandoms. Because some of the fears we have, of course, when it comes to cringe are being seen as childish, immature, our interests. This C.S. Lewis quote goes, "Critics who treat adult as a term of approval, instead of as merely a descriptive term, cannot be adult themselves. Be concerned about being grown up, to admire the grown up because it is grown up, to blush at the suspicion of being childish. These things are the marks of childhood and adolescence. And in childhood and adolescence they are, in moderation, healthy symptoms. Young things ought to want to grow. But to carry on into middle life or even into early manhood, this concern about being adult is a mark of really arrested development. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up." And since we're doing quotes, I want to do one last one before we bring it all back together for a discussion. I never really read any David Foster Wallace, and I don't know a whole lot about them. But they had this quote regarding the new sincerity. Remember that we talked about way back in the 90s. "The next real literary rebels in this country might well emerge as some weird bunch of anti-rebels. Born oglers who dare to back away from ironic watching, who have the childish gall to actually endorse single entendre values, who treat old, untrendy human troubles and emotions in U.S. life with reverence and conviction, who eschew self-consciousness and fatigue. These anti-rebels would be outdated, of course, before they even started. Too sincere, clearly repressed, backward, quaint, naive, anachronistic. Maybe that'll be the point. Why they'll be the next real rebels. Real rebels, as far as I can see, risk things. Risk disapproval. The old postmodern insurgents risked the gasp and squeal. Shock, disgust, outrage, censorship, accusations of socialism, anarchism, nihilism. New rebels might be the ones willing to risk the yawn, rolled eyes, cool smile, the nudged ribs, the parody of gifted ironists, the how banal, accusations of sentimentality, melodrama, credulity, willingness to be suckered by a world of lurkers and starers who fear gaze and ridicule above imprisonment without law. People who fear gaze and ridicule. People who are more afraid of being ridiculed than even imprisoned. Too afraid of being seen as sentimental, melodramatic, credulous. People who would rather look cool than be sincerely into things, to be earnest. Maybe that's the new sincerity, the new sincerity. Maybe that's us. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. I hope you enjoyed your time and that you learned something you can take with you. If you did, please like the video and follow the channel here and on Twitch so you can catch our games and lessons live. You can also watch our previous lessons at the links on the screen. And thank you for supporting independent and educational live streaming and VTubing. That's all I have for you today. Class dismissed.